people with us today from the Oregon Humane Society, including a veterinarian who's the chief medical officer, two women who work in education, and someone who works very closely with customer care. Their jobs are a little different right now, just as your school is a little different right now, but their mission is the same. So they're going to share with you about their work and some of the career paths and jobs at Oregon Humane Society and working with animals, and they'll answer any questions that you have. You have the chat function here. It's okay to ask questions anytime in the chat, and we will try to get to as many questions as we can. We've gotten a couple in advance from students in registration, but it's always a good time to ask questions. So feel free to do that. A couple housekeeping items. You're being recorded, that you know that already. Please take a minute and log your attendance in the link in the chat. You can see at the top of the chat, there's a little link. Appreciate knowing who's here. Your video and audio are muted for your privacy. We'd love to see you, but we know you're here. And again, any questions, ask them in the chat. At the very end, we'll have a short feedback link, and you can tell us what you liked, what you want to see more of in the future. We really appreciate hearing what you have to say, and that will inform what we do this summer and fall. So with that, I will turn it over to the amazing Barb Cushway. Barb, you're up.
Hi, everybody. Am I up?
Yep, you're up. Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Barb. I am the Humane Education Specialist at the Oregon Humane Society. In a nutshell, I do school presentations, I do tours, after-school clubs, summer camp that isn't this summer, and special events that the youth are involved in. That's kind of my job in a nutshell. And then there's my manager.
Hi, my name is Diana McKenzie. I'm the Humane Education Manager at OHS. I am relatively new to this organization. I was a high school principal, actually, before joining OHS. In addition to the activities that Barb mentioned, we also now have a bunch of virtual activities for kids. And if you go to our website, you can check them out. One of them is Miss Rebecca, and that's right there on your Barb's screen is Miss Rebecca. She is an amazing chicken that gives advice to kids who have questions about their pets. And then, but if you go to our website, check them out. We'd love to have you visit.
Okay, and Diana and I are the Education Department at the Humane Society. I want to take a minute to tell you about my career path and how I ended up at the Humane Society. It was a 10-year winding road. I have always loved pets. I have always loved kids. And so when I went to college, I picked the kid path. I majored in Park and Recreation Administration, which would make me like a camp director, and minored in psychology. But before I could pursue that job field, I landed in another one and I became a mom. I have 3 boys, and so when they were finally in school, I started volunteering at their school. And I have to tell you now, volunteering is a very important thing to do. Helps you figure out what you do and don't want to do. I was asked eventually to run the school computer lab. I spent 6 years in the elementary school doing computers with the elementary school kids. And then I discovered high school and I fell in love. And I spent 3 years working in the high school. At that point, I quit my life. I went back to school full-time to get my Master's of Arts in Teaching. And when I got out of there and was looking for a job, that's when I discovered the Humane Society had an education department. And started working there. I was 46 when I finally ended up at the Humane Society in the job that I love. So don't ever give up if you feel like you haven't found that right career yet, because it's never ever too late. Now, obviously, all career paths are not like mine and winding and take a long time. Some people are kind of like on the fast track. It's the straight and narrow. I would like to introduce Dr. Steve Kachis. He's our Chief Medical Officer, and his career path is a little bit different from mine.
Can you unmute, Steve?
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. My career path was definitely very different in that I always knew that I wanted to be a veterinarian from the time that I was a little kid. I tortured my parents with bringing home just about every kind of animal that I could possibly either sneak into the house or hide in the basement or somewhere in the yard. I think at one point my mom just basically gave up. Yeah, I started out as a kid, that's what I always knew I wanted to do. I was lucky enough to get into a summer program when I was in high school, where I got to do a externship at a veterinary hospital. Just happened to be the veterinary clinic that we visited with our own pets. And so I spent a summer there just as a volunteer, and then they offered me a job. So I worked in high school at a small animal veterinary hospital where we just saw dogs and cats, and went to Cornell for my undergraduate degree. I got a bachelor's degree in animal science. And in that program, I was exposed to all species. There was actually a fairly 50-50 split between cats and dogs versus, farm animals like cows and pigs and sheep and all of that, which was really great, very well-rounded. I continued to work summers in a veterinary hospital. And then I don't know, sheer luck, will, all kinds of things. My mom praying that I got into veterinary school. I was lucky enough to get right in right after undergrad. And so 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of veterinary school. I graduated in 1996 with my doctor of veterinary medicine. And then I did an internship because I wanted a little extra training. I felt like I was very well prepared in veterinary school, but it was a period of time where I thought I wanted to be a specialist in veterinary medicine. So I did an internship and got an extra year.
I actually went to find it back the next day, but it was really late, so I kind of hung up.
Hello?
No, do you know when it was? Do you know when it was, Abra?
Sorry about that.
What's that?
Sorry about that. Just a little muting issue. Go ahead, Dr.
Okay. So I did an extra year, and after I finished my internship, I did a variety of things. So, I think a lot of people think that to become a veterinarian, you're destined to be in a practice if you're into dogs or cats or horses or whatever it is, and you're just set to go into practice. And I didn't realize there were a lot of other opportunities as a veterinarian. So I've done emergency medicine. I worked in a specialty hospital where there was emergency and various specialists in all of the same different fields that we have in human medicine. So internal medicine, surgery, dermatology, ophthalmology, neurology, all of those things all in one roof. I worked in a private general practice, much like what probably most of you are familiar with. If you have dogs or cats, going to your veterinary clinic, I did that. I worked for a veterinary pharmaceutical company, doing training and education around the country. And then I've also done administrative work, which is kind of where I am now, where I still do some medicine, but I'm more on the sort of management side of things. I've been a veterinarian for 24 years as of next week, and it's been a really great ride. My job at Oregon Humane Society is a mix of, like I said, management, so managing people, but I also get to partake in planning of the future of the Humane Society and, ways that we can do more to help more in the community. And there's a chunk of what I do that's actually still in the medical part, where I still get to practice medicine. So I like to stay well-rounded, and I like to keep up my skills.
Dr. Kachas, one question that came up from students in registration was, if you're thinking about going into a career in animal care or veterinary medicine, are there some classes in high school or college that would be smart to take to kind of help you get prepared for that career path and learn more about it?
I would say a heavy emphasis on probably math and science, certainly the biological sciences. But I think that, being as well-rounded as possible is more of a benefit than focusing on just one sort of area. Obviously, there's going to be a very heavy focus when you get into veterinary school on science, biology, chemistry, all of those things. But I think having the well-rounded sort of education leading up to that is going to be really important. And there are requirements to get into veterinary school, so you have to check those boxes for various courses. But again, I would encourage people that are interested in veterinary medicine to not box themselves into just one area.
I'm getting that there's some horse lovers over here in the chat. I think some folks are curious, do you get to work with horses at all in your current practice? And what is that like?
In the Humane Society, we do help for as far as neglect and abuse cases with horses. I personally, after I graduated from veterinary school, I chose to just go down the small animal path. I did dabble for a while seeing birds and guinea pigs and all of those little pocket pets and small species, but I'm mostly just a dog and cat vet. When you're in veterinary school, you learn all the species. You have to learn everything.
What drove that decision, if you don't mind me asking?
Just a preference. I'm not a farm boy. I'm a city boy, and so having not spent a lot of time around large animals and horses growing up, I just knew that that's really more what I wanted to do.
There's one other question. I know Barb has got a presentation to share, but I want to get a couple more questions in, and then people can ask you additional questions later on in our time together. Anne is curious about what are some of the pros and cons of working in your field. Another way to put it, sort of like, what are the best parts and most challenging parts of being a veterinarian from your point of view?
I would say I'll talk about the pros first. I think the best part, I mean, if we're just talking about at the Humane Society, is, just the scope of how much we're able to do as far as helping, not just within Portland, but throughout the state and even the region. We're recognized nationally as a top-notch shelter. I'm very proud of that. I think there's a lot to say for coming home and knowing that you've helped a creature that doesn't have its own voice, and that can't speak for itself and can't advocate for itself. I think it's an additional challenge when you have to figure a lot of things out on a living being that actually can't tell you what's wrong. And so it's very rewarding. The downside is, sometimes people get into veterinary medicine because they like animals, but there's an owner attached to every single pet. And that is often the most challenging part about being a veterinarian, is dealing with the pet owners. Good, bad, or indifferent, we need them to pay the bill and to bring their pet in and to tell us what's going on to the best of their ability. But that is definitely the most challenging part.
I can see that to be the case, yes. Catherine had a question about, have you ever encountered a mad cat? She might be meaning, I imagine that a lot of the animals that come to you are hurt or scared or completely out of their comfort zone. How do you handle that?
A mad cat? Yeah, you can imagine that.
The gloves.
Yeah, we get mad cats, mad dogs, mad people. I would rather deal with a mad cat or a mad dog than a mad person. So it's not as bad as it sounds. We have lots of really good drugs that we can use to make mad cats and dogs less mad. And sometimes it's a matter of, if an animal is too worked up before they come in, we can have their mom or dad just pop them with a couple of pills before they come in to take the edge off, and it gives us a better chance of being able to work with them. It's a big movement right now to move towards making things as least stressful as possible. There's a lot of things that we've learned over the years about keeping cats and dogs separate, and not hesitating to give them a little something to take the edge off before they come, and using pheromones and all kinds of other methods to make it a much smoother process for them when they come to see us.
Makes sense. Well, thank you, Dr. Kachas. I think we'll move to Barb, and then we hope to come back to you and have a little bit more of a discussion about, just in general, how Oregon Humane Society is handling these social distancing requirements and how you're able to take care of animals and help animals find homes, even in this, the time of social distancing. So we'll come back to that area, and then maybe should we switch it back over to Barb and Diana to talk about OHS in general? which I did not know was 152 years old. That was a new fact for me today.
I'm curious, kids, down at the bottom of your screen, you have a reactions button. Give me a thumbs up if you have been to OHS before. Okay, good. So today we're going to take you on a behind the scenes tour, and we're going to really focus it on careers. We'll start with the big picture of OHS, and then we'll work down to our departments.
Who are we at OHS? We are a nonprofit. We're funded solely by donations, no money from the government. For 152 years, we have been committed to sheltering and finding homes for abandoned animals, fighting animal cruelty and neglect, and working to build a caring, compassionate community in the state of Oregon.
Last year, we helped adopt 11,710 pets, got into their home sweet homes.
But OHS does a whole lot more than helping pets find homes. We have an outstanding behavior department. We have an investigations department. That's the only one in the state of Oregon. We have an education department. That's Diana and I. We have a spay and save program, which is a low-cost spay and neuter program for folks that can't afford the cost of having that done at their vet. We have a top-notch medical program, a volunteer department, and a foster department that helps place animals that are not yet ready to be adopted, like these little cuties down at the bottom of the screen, place them with volunteers until they are ready to come back to the shelter and find their home.
So when all my life I have thought that OHS, or not just OHS, a Humane Society, was just about placing animals in homes. And there's just so much more to it. And obviously you're here because your passion is animals. Couple that with what your other passion is. So for me, it's education. So this career path, education and animals, is an amazing combination for me. Maybe yours is marketing. Maybe your niche is technology. Whatever it is, you can combine it with animals and have a career at OHS.
The first career we want to talk about is customer care department. The customer care staff take people through the entire adoption process. They're going to help you, once you found a pet you want to meet, they're going to take you through the meet and greet process. Getting to know that pet, they'll help you with the adoption paperwork, and they will walk you out the door with your new best friend. They are also some of the people who work at our in-store or in-shelter store, Best Friends Corner, so you might meet them there also.
Our admissions department is actually divided into two sections. Admissions being people come in and they need to relinquish their pets. Admissions checks incoming pets. And then there's a second chance program, which from my understanding is we bring in pets from other humane societies around as far as Texas and then as far as Hawaii, states all around us, and we partner with them and bring pets in here to find homes.
We have animal care. These are the folks that are actually hands-on with the animals. They check the health and temperament of the pets as they come in. They prepare these incoming animals for adoption. Make sure they've got their shots, their toenails are cut if they need it, line them up for grooming if that's what they need. They're responsible for feeding and cleanup after the animals. They pass out meds, and they write up kennel cards, which is the card on the front of the kennel that tells potential adopters a little bit about that pet.
Training and behavior is a department. We have, it's pretty cool and it's pretty advanced. We have people who work with the shelter dogs and cats who have issues, like my dog has a fear of other dogs. And so we work closely with trainers on that. They provide consults with clients that want to adopt a pet. One thing I admire about OHS is that they're very careful about who they're placing a pet with. Have lots of conversations prior to an adoption to make sure that that animal is going to fit in the lifestyle of that family. those adoptions stick. They teach a variety of dog training classes, teach our OHS volunteers who come in, and then they operate our behavior helpline.
And we've got our medical department. I feel like I should be letting Dr. Steve talk about this, but very briefly, they're responsible for spaying and neutering any shelter pet that, or any pet that comes into the shelter that has not yet had that done. They care for the medical needs of our shelter pets, and they are also the ones that perform our spay and save surgeries.
So we were talking earlier about passions and mine being education. If it wasn't education, this is the department I would be in, investigations. They have responsibilities for, like, when people call with a call of concern, just wanting us to check out if there's an animal that's being abused or neglected. These are 2 officers that are special agents. They're police officers, and then they also have advanced certification to work with animals. Down below, it says case manager. She's actually an attorney. That's her title at OHS, but she's an attorney, and they handle the cases that come through OHS.
Then there's the development department. That's a very critical department for the shelter, since we get all of our funding through donations. The responsibility is to assist in major fundraising, to keep track of all donors and acknowledge those donations. They maintain and expand our donor program, and they manage a portfolio of Thomas Lamb Elliott Circle members. Those are TLC people, and those are donors that give $1,000 or more a year.
So COPUS team is pretty much the catch-all for everything else at OHS. And this is the department that Barb and I fall under. But public relations, this is the department that deals with the news media, getting the stories out about OHS. Our marketing department, which is our branding, and also outreach to our community. Our motto is be more kind. Corporate relations, this is a department that works with businesses that help support OHS. Events and outreach, we have a ton of events that happen at OHS. You probably have heard of some of them, the Doggy Dash, the Pug Crawl, the Mutts on the Mountain. They organize all of those. We have a graphic design department. All of our, you can see the one in the middle says Oregon Humane Society, volunteers light up. They design all, oh, and then that's a camp t-shirt at the very bottom right hand. So our graphic design does all of that. Again, it's combining your passions with animals and what your other niche is. Our e-communications, this handles our social media. Again, Humane Education, which is Barb and I. And then our volunteer program. We have a coordinator for our adult volunteers and also for all our youth volunteers.
And then there are a few other jobs at OHS. There's business and finance, because somebody's got to keep all the money in line. There's information technology. Those are the people that saved my hide today when I couldn't get my internet to work. The human resources department. Those are the folks that are help with the hiring and also with making sure that things are right for employees that work for company. And facilities and maintenance. You'll love little Mimi down here at the bottom. She's the boss. So these are a few of the other departments that you'd find at the Oregon Humane Society. Let's stop the share. And Lori, I think you're going to cut in for us, okay?
Yes. Hi, guys. I'm sorry I don't see you, but welcome. My name is Lori, and I've been working at OHS for over 10 years now. I started volunteering, and I volunteered at OHS 5 years before that. So my path to my job, I work in customer care, is even more windy than Barb's. I did great in school, high school, no problem. I was one of those kids that I showed up for class, paid attention, stayed up with my homework. I didn't really have to study for a test, and I'd get B pluses and things. So high school for me, academically, was easy and things. In my high school, we had a guidance counselor, but like I didn't know what that meant and nobody really pushed it. So in my family, you got a practical job, something that was going to make money. And that meant going to college after high school. Neither of my parents went to college. So I went from high school into college. Now, suddenly, I had to study for a purpose. And I couldn't find anything that interested me because it all interested me. So finally, by the time I hit sophomore year, and the college is saying, hey, you have to declare a major, and my parents were saying, hey, you got to declare a major, I decided, you know, no. So I left school and started working. And I would try jobs that interested me, but did not have any of my personal interests because, you know, I didn't really know what those were. When I grew up out in the middle of the country. We had horses and dogs and cats. And the cool thing about my dad, he and I really bonded over our horses and the animals. And my dad, ever since I was a kid, would point out the animals' body language and the sounds that they would make and telling me, pay attention, what's the animal doing, and talk to the animal. And so I was getting frustrated. I hated the kind of jobs I was having, secretarial, clerical. I went to school, became an occupational therapy assistant, loved that. 6 months later, Medicare, Medicaid funding just destroyed my industry. So I'm back to looking for another job again. In the meantime, my husband and I moved to Oregon, to Portland here, and I started volunteering at OHS. And suddenly, all of my interests came to, what if I get a job working with animals? And that had never occurred to me before because my parents were like, no, you got a serious job, something that pays well, kind of a thing. So I would participate in rescues and things. And there was one rescue in 2009 that changed my life and gave me a taste of shelter work. It was a hoarding situation. We took in almost 120 some dogs that some of them were born in the conditions. Some of them, this guy was saying, hey, I'm a rescue. If you don't need your dog or so, I'll take him and rehome him. But what he was actually doing is just hoarding them. And so some of these dogs, it had been years, if ever, since they had had human love, human kindness shown to them. And seeing these dogs, working with these dogs, and my job was just to step into their kennels, clean up their kennels, step out, and see the transformation that just my simple actions to them changed their lives, changed mine. So I was hired in 2009 in animal care, worked there for 5 years, and then I transferred over to customer care, which is what I do now. My primary duties is building families. Adopting animals is so easy. OHS helps build families. We help people that are looking for a fuzzy family member, and maybe the dog they came in to meet to adopt isn't a good fit, but maybe we can find them a better fit. And when not every showing results in an adoption, but sometimes I can help people stop and think, okay, maybe I need to think what kind of dog I really want. Maybe a small dog is better for me, or maybe a cat's better for me or so. But when you find that match, it's the greatest feeling in the world. I've got the greatest job on the planet. And it happened because because I started listening to and remembering my interests, and I came to it through volunteering. And like Barb, I was in my mid-30s when I started volunteering, and then I was in my early 40s, and I'm considerably older now, so I still love it. Still love it.
Thank you, Laurie, for sharing that. And I love the way you put it about the difference between adopting out an animal and building a family, and really helping think about the fit and what's going to work long term for the people, and especially for the animal. So thank you for sharing that perspective.
Yeah.
I'm glad that all of you, I think, have talked about volunteering. There's actually a raging conversation in the chat about volunteering. People really want to know at what age you can start volunteering with OHS, and what kind of volunteer opportunities there might be for a student who's in middle and high school. After that, I'll ask about entry-level jobs and early jobs as well. But let's start with volunteering.
I can speak to that one. You need to be 12 years old to get involved in our youth volunteer program. And you have to apply for the program and be chosen to be in it. It's a little bit competitive, so if you don't get in the first time, you keep trying. That program is for youth that are 12 years through 17 years old. When you turn 18, you can join the adult volunteer program. And our youth volunteers are highly involved with our animals. They go through training and they learn to walk the dogs. They learn how to socialize with the animals. They can take classes in training. Different things like grooming. They also do projects for different departments in the shelter, whether it's helping cut up flyers that are going out, or putting together kits that need to be put together, whatever else it may be. They do that also, but they are definitely involved hands-on with the animals.
And then in terms of entry-level jobs, are there jobs, once someone maybe has volunteered a little bit and gotten that experience, what are some of the options for someone that doesn't require a college degree that maybe someone could do at 18 or so?
Oh, I'll handle that one. So here, a couple of entry-level jobs at OHS is animal care and customer care. Now, the requirements of that is to be 18 years old, have a a high school diploma or GED equivalent. They do background checks, so you can't have anything serious in your background, and certainly nothing that would be anything against animals and things like that. So that's the background check is kind of a extra little thing. And so once you're onboarded, really what we're looking for and what people are looking for at animal shelters is OHS is unique in that we have separate departments, but the average shelter in your average city or town, one person is doing a bunch of different jobs and things. So what you're looking for is the ability to switch gears very quickly. You may be cleaning a kennel, and then all of a sudden you are noticing this animal is not acting well, maybe is sick or is acting aggressively, where before they were the happiest dog on the planet. So being aware of not only what you're doing in the moment, but as things come in the job. So no day is ever the same from the next one, and that kind of thing. Being able to listen to people, talk to people, and then the more you work, the more training and the more you can do and go to different departments, do different things.
That speaks a little bit to Piper's question earlier, asking if there was a way to work in more than one department, like in animal care and customer care. I think that's a good thing to think about in general with your careers. Like some people really like to specialize and do one thing really, really well. And other people like to do a lot of different things. And so just thinking about And that's why it's helpful to volunteer, thinking about what's the right fit for you. And there's some advantages to being at a really big center and advantages to being at a smaller center. Try them both out.
Yeah.
Back to the volunteering question, is there an application process that opens, or are you kind of accepting volunteers all the time?
For the youth volunteer program, you have to watch the website, and you need to go onto the volunteer page and then down to the youth volunteer section, and they will let you know when they're accepting applications for youth volunteer positions. Right now, there's just almost a skeleton crew at the shelter because of COVID-19, so they're not taking on any more new youth volunteers right now. When we are all able to be back at the shelter and when we've kind of got things going again, that process will start up. So at that point, you can start watching the website. But for right now, sadly, there are no volunteers at the shelter.
We have time for just a couple more questions in our time together. We'll wrap up sometime in the next 5 minutes or so. This is a question for Dr. Kachis and perhaps your intern there, or your companion there. Angelica had a question about what kind of program, schooling, or opportunities would you recommend to help to get someone on track to work in veterinary practice? Are there particular programs in the Northwest that you hold in high regard or might recommend that the students here keep in mind in the future?
To become a veterinarian, or
yes.
Okay.
Or to get into the practice in general. I imagine there's different options within.
Yeah. I mean, for me, we did have good guidance counselors where I went to school, so they helped me get into a program when I was in high school that got me the position at an animal hospital. It's unfortunately in this area, it's kind of pounding the pavement to, you have to start at the bottom in a veterinary practice, working either as a kennel person or an assistant, something along those lines. I would highly encourage anyone to, either work on a farm. Husbandry is like a vital component of good medicine, and that's a good place to start. That's where you get kind of your animal handling. If you're going to apply to veterinary school, any like practical hands-on experience is going to make you a better candidate to get accepted. So, volunteering at Oregon Humane Society would be another, really good route to go, because again, you're going to get a lot of husbandry experience. I don't know if that answers the question, but there's not a whole lot out there that's geared specifically to track to become a veterinarian. It's all sort of self-motivated type behavior activities.
One question that came up in registration that I want to make sure that we get to is a question about salary ranges. You go into animal care and to nonprofits to get rich? No, I'm just kidding. What are the general salary ranges that a person might encounter if they go into this field?
Do you want me to I can take the veterinary side. That's probably another, I don't want to focus on the negative, but that's probably one of the harder parts of becoming a veterinarian or getting into veterinary practice in general, whether you're a veterinary technician, which is the equivalent of an RN on the human side, a nurse. The pay equivalent, human care versus veterinary care there's a big difference. If you're starting out as like a veterinary assistant, you can probably make somewhere in the $16 to $20 an hour range. If you're a certified veterinary technician, probably more in the $20 to $30 an hour range. And kind of the average starting salary for a veterinarian, at least in this area, is around $80,000. And keep in mind that your cost of education, you're probably going to come out of school with no less than around $150,000 to $200,000 in debt, depending on where you go to school.
That's serious.
Yeah, it's serious business.
Maybe one more question we have before we wrap up. You work with a lot of different volunteers and employees there over the years. Can you sort of describe what are some of the qualities in a new employee or a new person working with you? What separates someone who thrives in their job and someone who struggles? Are there some characteristics that you're really looking for a colleague or a new employee?
teamwork. That surprisingly, when you're talking about working in an animal shelter, people always focus on the animal end of it. Oh, I love animals, 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 I love it. Well, there will be days when an animal will not love you, especially an angry, angry cat that you need to give a pill to. That cat could love you any other time. So getting your ego out of things, sometimes the best thing you can do is, you know, we've got the 2-time rule, give it 2 times. And if it's not working, step out, either try something different with another person or ask another person to do it for you as well. And so there's a lot of physical work that goes on and a lot of emotional work that goes on. And so having the ability to work well with your teammates and step in to help everybody, that it's that social component that gets kind of overlooked, I think.
That may be a great note for us to end on today. I wish that we could talk all day. It's fascinating to hear about your jobs and about everything regarding Oregon Humane Society. I encourage the students and teachers who are here today to check out the website. There'll be more information about volunteer opportunities, jobs, summer camps, especially as things start back up again. One question in the chat was, if there's anything that people here could do to help during this time, help the animals at the Humane Society and who may be forgotten or needing extra assistance.
I would encourage them to go to our webpage again, because there's a lot of, we've got that covered. There's a lot of things that they can do, so check out the volunteer page.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today.